In this example, we're going to practice evaluating problems such as these using the distributive property, and we're also going to perform the parentheses first to validate that the two expressions are equivalent. So let's look at the first one. 5 times parentheses 3 plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7, so this is the same as 5 times 7, which is 35. Now we're going to rewrite using the distributive property. So one way that sometimes we like to visualize this is we're going to distribute or multiply the 5 times the 3 and the 5 times the 4. And we're going to keep the operation that's in between, provided we don't have a negative on the outside. So this will be 5 times 3 plus 5 times 4, which is 15, multiplying first. Now we'll multiply the second. Factors plus 20, which equals 35. And notice the results are the same. Let's look at the next one. 3 times the difference of 7 minus 5. So if we do the parentheses first, we have 3 times 2, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now distributing, we're going to multiply the 3 times the 7, and then subtract off the 3 times the 5. So 3 times 7 minus 3 times 5. So this is 21 is the first product, 15 is the second product, and finding the difference is 6. Let's look at the next one. In this case, the 5 plus 2 is in parentheses, so we could rewrite this as negative 4 times 7, which is negative 28. If we use the distributive property, we need to multiply the negative 4 times the 5 and times the 2. So we'll have negative 4 times 5 plus negative 4 times 2. Well, negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, and negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Combining these results, we'll add their absolute values and get 28. And since they're both negative and we're adding negatives, the result is negative. Let's look at this last one. So here we have a negative sign on the outside, and we could think of this as the opposite of the difference of 3 minus 7. And remember, we can also think of it as negative 1 times 3 minus 7. So finding the opposite is the same as multiplying by negative 1. We can think of it either way. So in the first case, we'll take the opposite of, well, 3 minus 7 is negative 4, and the opposite of negative 4 is positive 4. Or we could think of it as negative 1 times negative 4, and a negative times a negative is positive, and 1 times 4 is 4. And notice we get the same result. Using the distributive property, we can think of distributing the opposite sign or distributing a negative 1. So, if we think of distributing the opposite sign, we'd have negative 3 minus, this is a positive 7, so we take the opposite of 7 And this is negative 3. Subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. Negative 3 plus 7 equals positive 4. If you'd like to think of this as distributing a negative 1 by multiplying, negative 1 times 3 is negative 3 minus negative 1 times 7 is negative 7, and notice we get the same result, which is 4. So using the distributive property does take more steps and more operations, but it's actually a very useful tool you're going to see, especially in algebra, and it also helps you understand how we can partition those rectangles and write different sums as products.